We were kind of betting outside. This is just the post-lunch session, so we had some strategies of how we will keep you guys awake. But looks like I think this is a good audience here. We'll try to make it as engaging as possible. Maybe some nuggets and takeaways that will come out of it. But I also would like to. I know there are lots of practitioners in the room here. I'd love to hear your views as well. Just because we are sitting here doesn't mean we only get to talk. I'd love to hear at any point of time if you have a comment, not even question, but even comment or some experience, that we would love to hear that as well. So this is from the way the flow of the sessions are structured. The morning is the macro, the big why and the what part of it, and the afternoon is more of the how part of it, and that's where the guts of the topics that are discussed in the morning gets kind of peeled in by layer in various forms and factors. So we will focus more on the how parts of each of the topic, and today the topic is around the everything as a service. It's primarily, I don't think this needs any introduction. We are all living that right now. When is the last time you've done anything outside of a service? But now everything is moving towards that. Now, given that trend, there are various questions that come around. What how does that change a lot of things in the way we are structured, the way our people operate, the way our businesses operate? What are the trends and dynamics that governs this new paradigm? I wouldn't even say new. It's actually right here. We're probably living in it for the past 5 years now, right? So I think that's with that. I would like to kick off the panel. I have a great set of folks here who've been in the industry for a long time and have tremendous experience. I've seen this by the ringside. So with that, Niranjan, would you want to maybe introduce yourself and give a little bit of background about you?
Sure. I'm Niranjan Thirumalaya. I come from VMware. I head the India R&D site in India, here, Bangalore and Pune. I've been a product guy, right? Shrink-wrapped software guy for a long time. But lately, I'm transforming myself. I'm transforming the organization into a SaaS kind of a mindset, as well as products and deliverables. So this is interesting for me to share my early experiences and other points of view as well.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Hi, this is Piyush Jha. I work with GlobalLogic. Have been there for the last 14 years. And most of my time I've done mostly engineering, technology related stuff. Currently I'm an AVP at GlobalLogic, lead the delivery of the retail business there, and do a lot of this stuff for a living. And we have been doing SaaS first, and we are doing microservices now. Mostly, the stuff that we're talking about.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, Nitin Tappe. I'm a co-founder at Pratiti Technology, which I formed last year. At Pratiti, I'm essentially helping businesses to bring their physical assets on the internet, and as the businesses are finding newer ways to monetize their activities, as well as they are getting disrupted by the technologies, helping them to establish the new business model. Before that, I was a chief operating officer at Geometric Limited, which is an engineering and a PLM company. And in today's discussion, what I would contribute is to bring in the perspective from the industry I worked in. So happy to be here.
Excellent. So in the spirit of everything being sharing economy, you both are going to share that mic,
right.
And we both are going to share this mic. It looks like they didn't have enough. So, and the second one is, my request to the folks in the back is if you could turn down the temperature a little bit. I think it's becoming a little warm here. I understand we're all hot people, but doesn't mean it should really be this hot that we are sweating. So if there's a way you could dial down the temperature, I'd request that. And the other part, I was in the previous speaker, he was here trying to get the clicker on. And one thing I was thinking, we may colonize Mars, but we will never get the clicker right? So neither will we get our projectors right. So these are like, two things I think we are doomed with, right? So that's,
the mic will run out of battery.
And the mic will run out of battery. That's true. But yeah. All right. So with that, I think let's get started. I think this is the topic in question. We have people from different industries, different experiences. We'd love to hear their views on what has been the journey about how do you transform from almost all of us have gone through this in this room, from we have lived through the CD era, the installing software and shrink wrap products, to now everything moving to a service, and that's kind of completely depending on which side of the fence you wake up on. It's either completely disrupting and is good for you or bad for you. But all of us are facing that pressure. It's pressure in time, pressure in resources, pressure in how you manage your existing business and all that. So I'm going to we're going to discuss it in 3 sections. Section number 1 is more around how does that impact your business models. And that is the first part of it, is the business aspect of it. Second is looking internally, how does it change your organization mindset, and which includes people and the processes and how you're delivering it. And the third is the technology itself. How is the technology shifting part of it? So we will focus on each of these 3 topics, and I just wanted to give you a structure of the discussion there. So Nitin, let's start with that business side of it. How has this, and particularly you're also coming from more of a physical equipment type of a world. So how does this software, everything as a service, affected that particular industry?
Sure. So I think when I look at, or my industry look at everything as a service, there are 2 things which is driving the change in the business model. As I said, the mechanical products which were mainly sold as a physical assets today are being driven by the confluence of digital technologies, sensors, and you have the data to really monitor such products, physical assets on the field. You are able to literally sell these products as a service, right? So that's one dimension which is really driving the business model in that particular industry. Now, the same industries which used to build these mechanical products also had what we call very tightly coupled, value chain. So everything they used to do pretty much inside their organization. And as those businesses are also getting disintegrated, what's really happening is their enterprise IT architecture, which used to be a monolithic in nature, is also getting disconstructed into the various business applications where there are maturities the way they work today. They are able to outsource their business processes, and that's where they use a lot of state-of-the-art business applications which are really delivered on the cloud. So really the transition which is happening in the enterprise IT architecture is, instead of having a monolithic tightly integrated architecture, into more the different business application delivering specific business values, which could be built on a different platforms and could be loosely integrated.
Could you just give us an example, so just to make it real?
Right.
I'm sure you have lots in your experience, right?
So let me.
What has been one of the most exciting examples that you can share with us?
So now let's look at, say, the mining industry, right? So let me talk about the physical asset part getting onto, getting delivered as a service. And let me build on the example which was taken in the morning session about the autonomous machinery in the mining industry. Now, there are different use cases. Again, then I'll talk about that in the morning session. The different use cases, why those products are getting built as an autonomous machine. So if you really go to the underground mining industry, and let's talk about the long wall machines which essentially extract the material. Then you have the material handling systems, and essentially those systems are essentially getting the material out of it, right? So all these different elements which are the long cutting machines or the conveyor machines were sold as a product. With the automation of a lot of these activities, and the automation is really driving them to be sold as a solution. And with the Internet of Technology, today very much OEM are at the point where they are able to essentially sell this as a service. So that's
does it mean that people pay by usage? What are the models you're seeing that, particularly in the example you mentioned?
Okay, that's a very good question. In most of the cases, when they used to sell this product with a one-time sale, today many people are getting enabled. The business hasn't really gone. Business has moved from product to selling that as an automated system. But it is really at the point where there are all technology enabler for them to sell it at what's the throughput of that mining, right? So the business model at the level where these manufacturing or OEMs are offering their solution as a service, they are pretty much there to offer it as, what's the throughput. So it's really the outcome-oriented business model.
Oh, I didn't know that. So it's kind of depending on the outcome realized.
Exactly.
Niranjan, going from a very mechanical, very physical industry to a software side of it, what do you see what are your comments on the business model changes that has happened?
Yeah, I think a lot of the business model changes have been forced through customers wanting these things as a service, right? That is one thing. Customers see other things being offered as a service, right? Starting from Salesforce and so on, and then they say, why can't yours be a service? So in some sense, those kind of changes are forced upon us, and we react appropriately. So towards that, I think even within VMware, we are doing a lot of things across many different pillars of technology, either your desktop or your mobile middleware, or even our core products. We are starting to do them as a service. But we are also reacting internally to saying that if hardware primarily is a commodity and software is best delivered or most efficiently delivered as a service, what more can we do, right? And we're introspecting very deeply into every single aspect of what it is that the company is about. Even our core product, which we call Software-Defined Data Center, which is a suite of products, we are well on our way to thinking of converting that as a completely as a service entity, and then saying let any cloud provider be the host, right? So we are in a way turning it backwards, saying that let this software be running as a service, let it run somewhere else, right? And we are very comfortable with then having the business model where we split the revenues between the various players in the ecosystem.
Okay. And is it just so that people can hear in the back, is it a marketing-driven change within the organization, or is it technology-driven change which goes to the market? How is that panned out?
It's both ways. Okay. It's absolutely both ways. More than marketing, I would say it's either customer-driven, or technology-driven. Quite often it has to be both.
And the reason I ask is there is a cannibalization aspect to the whole thing, right? Particularly on the business side of it, and I think that's a question that needs to be answered. The moment you sell like $1 million and suddenly it goes into trickle, how does that work out? Because I know the technology trend is inevitable, but there is a forces within the company for inertia to kind of go. How does that work? No, it's very funny
it's funny. Yeah, it's funny. Exactly, right? Mike as a service. No, you have to do both, right? It's very, very difficult for a company to cut over, right? And saying that today we are doing product that we sell by license, and we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to just do that. So there will be a period in which companies like us, any company for that matter, and all of you here, will run both of those things parallelly. And hopefully there is a point where you realize that you will cut over. And that quite often is when your on-premise things, when the need is there, you get that, you're the customer, right? So this usually happens when you realize your on-premise thing is dipping in revenues, accelerating the dipping, and that's not going to change. And when you see the curve on the other side going up, right? And hopefully that balance adjusts itself. Otherwise, there is cannibalization, so there will be conflicts between the two teams. Secondly, there is also an issue of allocation of resources. Who do you prefer? When do you put more investment in one and not the other? When do you starve the other? All those questions have to be tackled, and I don't think there is an easy answer to that. It is a case-by-case basis. It depends on the product itself. The bigger the product was, the more revenue it had, the harder it'll be for it to change, the longer it'll take, and the more courage it takes to do that.
And do you see this as a top-down leadership thing? And I think all three of you will have some perspective versus more of a groundswell change.
I think, and I'm using the word, I have to emphasize think, right, that it's certainly a top-down thing.
Top-down.
It comes from vision, it comes from strategy.
Got it. Piyush, what's your experience in this? On the business model, you guys have helped a lot of customers through this journey. What have you seen? And give me some nice stories there.
I would start with one. I met the founder of Home Shop 18 in one of these conferences.
Your mic needs.
Not long ago, probably 5 years ago. And he told, when we were talking about how Home Shop 18 had structured its business, he told us that, Home Shop 18 was actually 4 companies. It was a software company, it was a retail company, it was a call center, and it was a courier company. Because by then, everything as a service was not a concept that was really adapted and really adopted by everybody. Today, and I was reading a bit about this topic, on how it evolved and stuff like that. There was a quote from 2014 that, one day, the biggest food enterprise will probably not have its own kitchen. And today, the Olas and Ubers do not own cars, at times, if they do not have to. So, that is the speed with which this stuff has evolved, that's the speed with which this stuff has changed the whole game. When we are working with retailers today, like Kohl's or Amazon or Snapdeal, we mostly talk in terms of multi-speed engineering. So you may develop your mobile apps, but you may not invest in the iPad app if you do not need to. And that would not be possible if you keep thinking in terms of traditional 3-tier architectures, which were really monolithic. But today you can, because you have really evolved everything into a microservices-based architecture. It's really the smaller parts that change the game, and you have a complete vertical stack as opposed to the natural horizontal stack only that changes things. So this whole thing has made the competition really great, but it's also made the consumer the king. Because if you demand, people would be able to serve you, people will be able to change the software in like 15 days, the next release. Whereas in the earlier model, you could have struggled for a feature to get out in 3 months, and then still you'd need to do a lot of UAT around it, need to do a lot of testing around it, because every single change impacted the whole layer. But today, it is not like that. So that is how things are evolving at the technology end, and that is how companies like Uber, Ola, or all the food services giants, and all of them have become really adaptable.
So one question while you guys were talking about it is that, does it create a lot of identity crisis for companies? Because you just don't even know who you are, right? Earlier it was much more clear what you are, but these days, like you said, you mentioned about Home Shop, there were like 4 companies. It looks like there's an identity crisis. Does this create, everything as a service suddenly opens up a lot of your internal stuff also outside. So does that, how does that work out? Do companies go through that process of who we are kind of thing?
It does in some sense, but all the companies today have finally realized that everybody is a software company. Now, most of the businesses that are
one identity, like one God, and
that is one identity, and then you compartmentalize. Then you think of your core business. So everybody is talking about their technology and their business as 2 different modules. So if you were a manufacturing company yesterday, you were a manufacturing company. But today, if you are manufacturing cars and you are not a software company, you cannot survive. You need to have cars that are connected. You need to have cars that can talk to you. So people have realized that they will have domains, but eventually everybody would be a software company.
Sounds good. So Nitin, what's the biggest difference you see 10 years ago to today, in your opinion? The context being the everything as a service part, what is the biggest shift you have seen?
The biggest shift is today, again, I will keep on bringing the perspective from my industry, right? In the past, if you really look at the product development cycle of, say, automotive vehicle or any machinery equipment, used to be a very large waterfall cycle, right? The requirements would only and only come from a marketing department. And today, the technology has really, when you are offering your product as a service, your value proposition is changing. You're not offering a product, but you have so many touch points with your customers. So you really have a lot of data to bring it back in your product development life cycle to make enhancements of your product or to bring a next generation of product, which is completely not possible in our industry many years back. And that is helping this industry to bring the life cycle shrink, multifold.
Okay. What about you, Niranjan? What's your comment on it? As you've seen this industry evolve so quickly, what is the biggest shift that you have noticed?
Biggest shift that I've noticed, I think even between the groups of the companies itself, is that companies that are product teams that are being agile and doing as a service development typically have a lot more. I think I'm just going to say a point that's not always echoed, is that it's full of all-rounders.
Okay.
It has people, people today who are working in these things are full stack people. They're not pigeonholing themselves as, I'm the database guy or I'm the message queuing guy and so on. They can do a lot of different things. They can understand customers. They exhibit a lot more end-to-end thinking. In a way, you could say that these teams are more full of Jadejas and not Lakshmans, if you will.
Okay. I'm not a big follower of cricket, but now I understand Jadeja and Lakshman.
But you got it as cricket, so there.
I knew it was cricket, but now I understand what is Jadeja now, because you mentioned the full, all-rounders kind of thing, right? So I think what you bring is a very interesting point. Is it easy, hard to hire these? Or a question: are they made or are they trained? It's like, we were having this discussion. How do you find these guys, right? So.
I don't think they're made. They can be trained, right? So one word that I actually don't like people using it is that we say that we want people with cloud DNA.
Okay.
Right, and that kind of seems to say that you either have it or you don't. Right, that DNA cannot be changed. So and I'm guilty of that as well. So I shouldn't use that word. But now that you put it that way, I think they can certainly be trained. I've seen people transform. I've seen the change. But we need to, I think, be conscious that that is a value, that is of serious value. That kind of a mindset and that kind of expertise that kind of spans adjacent areas. And not the whole spectrum. Then you'll dilute yourself. But you should be able to do a whole bunch of things. I think that's absolutely critical. And when you talk about DevOps, I think that is, in a way, what it is. That doesn't mean that you're doing dev, but you're doing every aspect of ops. It means that you know dev and you know enough about ops that you can bridge that gap.
Got it. Yeah.
No, interesting point around this is that 5 years ago, if you asked a Java guy to do JavaScript, it would be like, I'm a backend person. But today everybody realizes that that is no more possible, because the whole thing is what everybody wants. So people are learning. So even earlier, it was not like people did not have it in them to do it. They did, but it was like they wanted to specialize around a particular thing. But since people have started to become adaptable, we are finding more and more guys like this. As in, it's no more a challenge finding full stack people as it was 2 years ago.
Do you guys echo this? So Piyush has figured out a formula. I think we should ask. We should ask. How many guys think that today you can actually find reasonably good amount of full stack good people in the market? Okay, there are like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10.
And they are the full stack.
They are the full stack.
Yeah, but then when you said full stack, good people,
good people. Okay, I should say. Oh, yeah, all right. Okay, I get it. Full stack. Okay, maybe then I should say full. No, but I think it's getting better. I totally understand that. But I think the need, the one big thing I'm learning is that the whole aspect that you have to know end-to-end, at least if you're not good at it, you have to know it. I think that's your point. Some questions, some comments from the team? Yes, there is a, yes.
More to person with mining or mechanical experience.
Nitin.
Yeah, when business has moved to service, what happens to the contracts? See, for example, earlier we used to have maintenance contracts, and now maintenance contracts is being replaced by service contracts. So the warranty cost optimization and also the profit made on the maintenance that we used to charge on the mechanical parts, replacements and services, that is going through a big change now when we use it, deploy a machine or a machine as a service as part of a solution. So where do you think is the business model heading, and where is my cheese actually?
I like the word cheese. Yeah, cheese is moved.
So you're absolutely right. I think when these products, the physical assets, are being offered as a service, so very clearly that's kind of taking over the maintenance part of it, right? But look at, again, I talk one aspect of it when Bala asked me these questions. What's the change happen in the industry? So I talked about the design optimization, which happened from a maintenance data or a service data, which I get, and I'm able to optimize my design. So with that, today, even I am able to optimize a lot of my warranty cost, right? Again, to give a very specific example of mining industry, today through a remote monitoring of how you are extracting the material, depending on how you are really using the cutter and depending on understanding the wear and tear of the cutter, you can really make it out how soon you would be really requiring the replacement.
You're saying there's a new value in terms of
new value you are able to get through a lot of analytics of the data which you are getting. So from a pure revenue standpoint, it might appear that that's getting vanished, but overall, it's all about the extended value proposition and which companies are able to monetize by monetizing their additional activities, and number two, by reducing the cost, because they have pretty many more touch points with the their actual product which is in the field.
All right, thank you. So we're actually, the one says time up, so I'll give one question and then we are wrapping up. And then we are all available, right, offline, if people want to talk. Yeah. Any one question? Yes.
Hey, you talked about the transformation in terms of the strategy and the broader thing. Going deeper, what kind of platforms, tools are you using? I mean, Agile is what we understand, but can you go deeper into what tools or platforms you're using, and what are the difficulties you face? Because migrating a monolith into microservices is not a simple task. I mean, small applications are okay, and maybe number of applications are okay. But if you take a tool like Amazon, and then if you want to convert it, it's difficult. So can you put your experiences there?
So I think we have enough time just to name the tools. And then the difficulties would...
I think fundamentally there are a zillion open source tools out there that you can use, right? From your Mesos and Kubernetes to any of these kinds of things.
You guys use a lot of...
We use a lot of those things, and there's no getting away from that, right?
Okay.
And that tool chain will help. We can talk more offline. Sure.
One thing that we have pretty frequently used is to wrap and replace, right? So let's say you have, your question was around transforming a large, huge monolithic application into something that is, extremely nimble and agile. So, what you would probably start with is that, you wrap the backend, and then you replace it component by component. You wrap the backend, have APIs exposed, build up, apps or web pages or whatever you want on the top of it. And then, when you have time, you replace all these modules one by one into their own specific microservices.
Excellent. Nitin, any advice? You're good?
I'm good.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you very much. You've been a fantastic audience, and have a great, rest of the afternoon.